This video is going to talk about some troubleshooting techniques that will not only benefit you now, but hopefully throughout the class and beyond. In order to introduce these concepts, you'll notice that on my screen I have a new PHP document with an introductory comment, and then I'm going to use some variables here. So a comment showing what I'm doing here. And then we have a number of variables. So we have variable, which is a string. We have var1, which is an integer. We have var2, which is a double. We have var3, which is also a string. Even though you'll notice the value is a double, because it's inside of quotes, it is considered a string. And then we have just a simple array with 4 values in it. Now, with those values defined, let's show you some techniques. So the first technique is just the simple echo statement. The whole purpose behind this echo is to show you values. So in this first echo, we have just the variable itself, which should be I am a string. And then we've concatenated using the period symbol here, a line break, so that we should see these on separate lines. The second echo, notice the double quotes. Now remember, in PHP, double quotes allow for interpolation, which means that when we put a variable inside of it, it will show us the value of the variable. Now, let me just quickly do the comment here, a copy, and I am going to paste. And then instead of using double quotes, I will use single quotes just to show you the quick difference. And then I am going to also copy this line break and put it here at the end of the second statement. So again, all of these should now appear on the same line. Now, you'll also notice that I have an exit statement at the bottom, and that will stop all further processing. So we won't see any of this that is below that because the exit will stop it. So all we should be able to see at this point are our 3 echoes. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. I'm going to switch back over here to my browser. I'm going to reload, and you can now see. So the first echo statement shows me the value, which is I am a string. The second echo statement, because there are double quotes at the beginning and the end, allow those variables to display their values. You'll also see that we see the commas between them so that we can tell, in fact, that there are 3. And the last one, because they're no longer double quotes, but rather single quotes, simply show us the names of the variables themselves. So what would you use an echo for? An echo is very handy to be able to show values that are stored inside of variables to make sure that the value that you expect to see is in fact the value that you do see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and comment out these echoes so that they are no longer active, and I am going to take my exit statement and I'm going to move it at the end of the first line. Now, var dump is a very interesting tool because as I hover over this and my tool shows me the definition, you'll notice that it says it dumps information about a variable. So this should show us information about variable, and you'll remember that variable is a simple string. So I'm going to go ahead and save this document, return to my browser, reload the page, and it tells me that the variable called variable is a string. It has 13 characters in it, and then it actually shows me the value. So that's what var dump does. Okay, so let's return. Let's move that that exit statement down one more line. Let's comment out the first var dump. This time you'll notice that we should see the array. So again, I'm going to save. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to reload the page. And we see that it tells us, oh, this is an array. It has 4 elements within the array. The first index is 0, and remember that all arrays start with 0 and then move forward. So the 0 element is a string. It contains 5 characters and its value is Chevy. The second element is also a string. It contains 4 characters and it's Ford, and so on and so on and so on. So again, var dump does exactly what it says. It displays information about the variable. So very handy when you want to find out how many elements are in an array, what kind of data is stored in those elements, etc., etc. Now, I'm going to finally go ahead and save, and you'll notice the last of our troubleshooting techniques is print R. And print R, again, has the array in it. I'm going to return back over. I'm going to reload. And you'll notice that there's a slight difference from the var dump. In this case, it simply tells us that it is an array. The 0 element is Chevy, first element is Ford, etc., etc., etc. So it just gives us the basic information about what the item is. So not quite as robust or as fully descriptional as is the var dump, but still it does have its purposes. Okay, so those are going to be some techniques that you're going to want to be using throughout the course. Now, what is going to follow is a bit old, but it should still be very helpful to help you see how to troubleshoot and pick up some additional techniques that you can use in troubleshooting as we work through the registration process. Now, again, this is a little bit of an older video. It's using some older tools, but the concepts are still exactly the same. So I hope that you'll pay attention. I hope that you'll watch the entire video, and I hope that you will find it very helpful to you. I'm making this video to attempt to demonstrate some debugging and troubleshooting methodology. And in order to help me out, I have my debugging buddy sitting right here, and I'm going to use my duck as I work on this. Now, I am using the materials from the registration process. I have intentionally gone in and created some errors so that we can practice some debugging methodologies, and I can try to explain those methodologies as we progress. So I'm going to go ahead and hide my picture and just let you watch the screen while I do some narrations. Okay, let's get started then. As you can see, I already have my servers running, and I am looking at my Acme homepage. And so when I click on the My Account link, it delivers the login page, which is fine. I'm not interested in logging in. I'm interested in registering. So I come down and I click on my Create an Account, and here I am. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in just like we would normally do. And so I am John Wayne, and of course I am the Duke at Hollywood.com, and I'm going to put in my password, you know, something really silly such as I am the Duke. Okay. Now, from a visual point of view, you can see that all of the fields are required, and I have supplied a value for all of those fields. So when I click on the Register button, this is not what I expected to get, right? What I expected to get was some sort of a message telling me that my registration had succeeded or that it had failed. Obviously, this is neither. It's just kind of, as I like to affectionately call it, Rexburg in winter. It's pure white. Okay, so obviously not what I expected. So how do I troubleshoot this? Well, I think probably to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and come over here to NetBeans. And here is my accounts controller, which is what I should be using to register someone. And I'm just going to kind of look down through it. Now remember, what I'm trying to do is register someone. So as I come down here through my list of variables, I'm looking for a switch case, such as I've got right here, that will handle registration. And as I look, I see, well, let's see, I'm collecting first names, last names, email addresses, and passwords. I'm doing the checking. This must be it. All right. So in order for this case statement to execute, I'm looking for a value stored in the action variable with the name of register. And as I continue to look down through here, you'll notice there's a line of code right there that says it would send back my registration view if there was an error with my data. I didn't get it. And as I look down further, I find that I should get this view, right, the login view, if it worked. I didn't get that either. I didn't get the registration view, as I've already explained. So it doesn't even look like I got here. That's what it appears to be. So what I want to do is find out, am I even getting to the controller, right? So the way I test that, and if you've ever played the game of Battleship, this is going to sound really familiar. For those of you who've never played Battleship, right? Two people have this box. It's got a grid on it. They put their toy ships somewhere in the grid, and the opposing player says some grid intersection such as B2. And the person then looks at their grid to see if they've got a ship there. And if they have a ship sitting in B2, they say hit. But if they don't, they say miss. And then they take turns trying to find one another's ships and sink them. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're playing Battleship here. So what I want to do is I'm just going to quickly echo a statement. And it doesn't matter what I put in here. I just want to see if I can see it. All right, so I'm going to say something like this: in the controller, right? That should be pretty obvious. And then to make sure that nothing else happens, so I can just focus on this, I'm going to put in an exit afterwards. Now, hopefully you've already seen code like this in the activities where I'm asking you to test things. So that's what I'm doing. I'm simply testing to see if I end up in the controller, so if I know I'm even getting there. So now I jump back over here to my browser. All of that data is still sitting in the browser, so I'm not going to go back and fill that again. I'm just going to hit reload. It pops up and says, hey, do you want to resubmit all of that same information? And the answer is yes. So I click continue, and notice I get to see in the controller. So I know that my form is pointing to the right place, and I can see that if I go to my registration form. Sure enough, there it is, right? It's pointing to my account's controller. Excellent. Okay, so I know I'm in the right location. So now the question is, how come I'm not getting something to happen? So I'm going to take this exact same comment. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to come down into where this should be happening, right here, right? Because this appears to be where I should be handling all of the processing for my registration process. I'm going to create an empty line, and I'm going to paste that exact same code in. But now, to be able to distinguish this test from the previous test, I'm going to say in the register case. There, that should be a clear enough distinction between testing if I got to the controller and testing if I actually got into the right case. All right, so there it is. It's saved. I'm going to come back to my browser window, and I'm going to reach up. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm simply going to reload. I'm going to resubmit the data. Oh, notice that. Nothing. Ugh, not a good sign. So that means I didn't get here in order to be able to see this. So now the question becomes, why not? Now remember, the only way I can get here is if I have sent in action equals register. And remember, we're looking for the post or the get for a name-value pair where the name is action and the value is register. Now remember, all of this information is coming from my form. So I'm going to go over here to my registration page. There's the form tag, there's the closing form tag, and notice here is my action key value pair. So the name is action, so I have action, value is register. Oh, wait a second, hold on. Notice it's looking for lowercase register. I put uppercase register. They don't match. The case statement is case sensitive. They have to be an exact match. All right, let's see what happens then. So if I delete, does that sound right to you, Duck? Yep, okay, so Ducky agrees. So I'm going to put in a lowercase r now. I'm going to save. Now, because I made a change in the view, I can't just reload. I have to actually go back to the view, then reload the view, then fill out the form and submit it again. Now, that's the only time you actually have to do that, is if you make a change to the view itself. Okay, so I've made the change. Coming back over here to my browser, I'm going to go back. Now I'm going to reload the view. Okay, and I can see if that change occurred by right-clicking, saying View Page Source, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to find my input. There it is, and now notice register is lowercase. All right, so I've got the right form now. So let's try this again. So John Wayne Duke at Hollywood.com. Provide a password. I am the Duke. Register. Oh, look. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? Duck, you are so clever. Yep, the duck agrees. Okay. So, error number one. My action value in the form did not match the action value in the controller, and they have to. Now they do. Now I can see that I'm actually in the right place. Okay, so now that I know that I'm in the right place, I'm going to go ahead and save. Now I notice I got rid of my echo statement and my exit, so now it should go ahead and process. So I'm going to come back over here to my browser. Again, not going to go back to the form and refill it out because all of that information is now correct. Reload, resubmit, and this time, ooh, look at that. Please provide information for all empty form fields. Well, that doesn't sound good. All right, so back to my code. And let's take a look at this. So I've got a variable here. It's collecting a value based on this name. This one is about getting a value on that name. This one is getting a value on that name. And this one is getting a value on that name. And then I'm checking to see if all four of these variables have a value. Now, please note, I'm going to check my variables first. So client first name, notice I've clicked on it, its match highlights. Client last name, notice they both highlight. Client email, they both highlight. And client password, they both highlight. Well, that's a good sign. But it still tells me that something's not kosher because I got this message telling me that something was gone. All right, so how do I figure out what is empty? Now, there's lots of ways of doing this. I'm just going to show you what I think is the fastest way. I only have 4 variables. And you'll notice too, I have the same 4 variables down here because when I saved them into these variables, I tested those variables, and now I'm sending those same variables with their data over to the model so that they can be written to the database. So supposedly all of these should match. So I'm going to copy that list. I'm going to click here, right, because this is failing. So I want to test it before it gets to the failure. And I'm going to type echo, but notice double quotes and paste. Then I'm going to put in my semicolon at the very end, and I'm going to type exit. So again, it doesn't continue to process. It will simply show this. Now, I don't necessarily have to do this, but I'm going to anyway, just to reinforce this concept. So when I click this variable, all instances of it should highlight. So I'm making sure that I don't have any typos here. All right, everything highlighted, I don't have a typo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to reload, I'm going to resubmit the form, and what I'm watching for is to see if any of these are empty, which is what this appears to be telling me is happening. But this helps me figure out which one or which ones, if there's more than one, are empty. All right, so save, back to the browser window. I'm going to reload. Now notice all this data is still there. Continue, and look, John, Wayne, nothing, I am the Duke. So the piece that appears to be missing is the email. All right, well, at least I've got it narrowed down and I know what to look for now. Okay, so back to my code. So over here where I'm collecting the email value, I'm looking for a name value pair where the name is client email. And again, I have to ask myself, where is this coming from? Well, it's coming from my form. All right. So I come back over here to my registration form. I find out where I'm asking the person to give me the email address. Here's the actual input. Type is email, name, oh, email. Wait a second. No. Look at all the rest. The name is client password, client last name, client first name. This is just email. So what's the problem? Yep. All right. Duck tells me I forgot to put client email so that it matches. Don't you hate it when stuff like this happens? Okay. So client, and notice it's a camel case, so that E has to be a capital. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back to the index and I'm going to double check, right? Client email. If I really want to make sure I don't have a mistake, I can copy that. Notice I had it highlighted. I copied it. I can come back over here. I can highlight this and paste. And now they dang well better be the same because I copied and pasted it from one to the other. All right, save. Notice again, I made a change to the form in the HTML, which means when I come back here, I actually have to come back to the form. I have to reload it so that I get the new version. I'm going to just, again, bear with me, view page source. I'm looking for my email. And notice, I now have the right name, client email. It's camel case. That looks okay. Now let's try it again. Okay, so again, John, Wayne, Duke at Hollywood.com, and then the password. And there's the password. Register. Notice I still left my echo and my exit in place. Notice I now have all of my data. Whoa, that's good. Now that I've got that trouble shot, let's go back over here.
to the index, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of my test line. Just going to go ahead and delete it. I'm going to save, and now when I resubmit, it should collect the data, it should check the data, and then it's going to attempt to write the data to the database using the function that's over in the model. It should tell me what the outcome is. And again, I'm hoping that the outcome is it worked perfectly and you're now registered. Right? That's what we want. Okay, so let's try it again. Back to the browser. Again, I didn't make a change this time to the form. All I did was get rid of my echo statement and my exit in the controller. So I can reach up here and I can reload. I can say, go ahead and submit it. Oh, dang it. Don't you hate that? Notice, undefined variable, client. Oh, look at that. I've got a typo. I simply inverted 2 characters. But let's look at the rest of it. In my model, in my accounts model on line 20, I've got a second error, but one at a time. All right. So I'm going to go to my model. I'm going to look at line 20 and I'm going to see if I can find a typo. So back to NetBeans. Here's my model. I'm looking for line 20. There it is. And line 20 is this one right here. And notice, there's my issue. And that's an easy one to make, all right? So let's fix the typo. There it is. I'm going to save. Again, I didn't make a change to my view at all. So if I come back to the browser, all I have to do is tell it to resubmit it. And it says, thanks for registering, John. Please log in using your email and password. Perfect. Now, it's really easy at this point to say, everything worked, I'm good. But where we're still trying to figure out how things are working, it's always good to make sure that you didn't get a false positive or a false negative. And the way that we can absolutely check that is by looking in the database. So I know that in my local system, I'm in localhost PHP myadmin. There it is. I would go to my Acme database. I would look at my clients table, right, because I'm trying to register a new client. And then I'm going to look down at the bottom, and there's John Wayne Duke at Hollywood.com. I am the Duke. Yay! It worked. All right. And the duck is excited as well. So the key thing to remember is names have to match all the way through. And when I say all the way through, I mean that literally from whatever value you have in the name inputs throughout your form has to be pointing to the correct location. In the controller, case sensitive, right? So this had to be lowercase so that they would match. I have to make sure that whatever name I'm looking for here is the same name that exists in the form. I then have to make sure that my variables match all the way through. And again, all I have to do is click on the variable and all instances of it will highlight. I can echo inside of double quotes various variables, so client, email, etc., etc., etc. And then I can separate them with commas and watch for empty spaces, because that tells me which variable doesn't have a value in it, and therefore I can backtrack and try to figure out what the problem is. The other thing is it's really easy to have typos. And so you ask yourself the question, what is the function supposed to do? And in this case, because I'm sending in data, I should know that this is going to be attempting to write that data to the database, right? Because I'm trying to register. Registration means writing data. And then I can go ahead and come over to the function that's supposed to be doing that and use it to check various aspects of my SQL statement. Now, I noticed an issue, and it's got me just a little perplexed why it didn't throw an error. Do you notice that my last name is missing the colon so that it matches this? And yet it still worked. And quite frankly, I'm a little surprised at that. But since I noticed it, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I put the colon back in just to make sure. All right, so I hope that this relatively short video on debugging will help you to think about how to attack troubleshooting. And the key thing to remember is check to see if the data that you expect to be having at certain points is there, and you can accomplish that with an echo statement. You can also echo to make sure you're getting to the various locations in your application where you believe you should be. So I hope that this is helpful. My duck and I are rooting for you. We want you to be successful, and good luck with your troubleshooting. Bye.